Kekjihan Yuhat Duasa, Yeh Nahatsati, Teatan Nahatsati, Stakwan Dak, Tuchka Kalumbi Yadi Ayahat. Hi everyone, my name is Jordan Gibson. My Tlingit name is Kekjihan, just standing frog. This is my son Sage. His Tlingit name is Tleet, which is Little Tail. And I have another son who was just born July 23rd. So he does not have a name yet. Waiting for a ceremony to make that happen. We are Lumbee and African American by descent, but I was taken in by my Tlingit, Haida, and Hawaiian family as a young man, and their culture is a big part of our life. Oh, and I'm presenting to you from Hawaii. Next slide, Antonia.
Ihane Washte Loma, good morning, everyone. Stephanie Autumn. I serve as the co-director of the Tribal Youth Resource Center at the Tribal Law and Policy Institute. One of our values is always opening in a good way, recognizing Creator, the earth, all of our relatives. And it's my honor because another value we have is lifting up youth voice, including youth in everything we do. And it's my honor to be able to present an amazing young man, Nobu Olin, who has spent the last several years serving land and water protection front lines while working extensively with youth. Nobu works alongside his elders and traditional knowledge keepers, and he's been working to nurture an alliance of land spaces to regenerate the land's life systems while providing young people safe spaces to grow. The coalition that he works with has centered around a living library, a growing collection, a project-based curriculum for a more livable world. Story projects run by Nobu and other frontline coalitions. They have partnered with Sundance Film Festival and the Protect the Youth, Heal the Land, Feed the People Coalition. So it's my honor to have this amazing young man to open us up in a good way. It's all yours, Nobu.
Tlaso Kamati, thank you. It's an honor to get invited to say a couple words. I want to say Tlaso Kamati to that way tale, that grandpa way, that good way, that old way, that beautiful way. Because for me as a young person, what took I didn't really see people working together in the hoop, being sacred to each other and being good to each other. I didn't really grow up around that as much, So I think I was really starving for a lot of love. And ultimately, when I came to Standing Rock as, 19, 20 years old, and I was there for about half a year. There are people, they're way longer than me, and it was an honor to be there. But I got to see all these young people, and they had a sense of purpose, and, doing security at the North Gate and looking back and seeing 300 fires there, and just the honor of having a role or getting a chance to be a part of something beautiful. And that was the first time I'd ever really seen something like that. So, I just wanted to bring up the story of Wascones. And she was a 16-year-old girl who was on our security squad at Standing Rock. And she came up with this plan. And she said, okay, well, there's this herd of buffalo, and then there's a camp that's cornered on 3 sides by, hundreds of mercenaries and, armored vehicle, crazy things. So, she kind of convinced these, 19, 20, 21-year-old Bronco riders who were part of that horseback security. She convinced them to go, and they broke that herd of buffalo free, and they ran it towards the police, and the buffalo were running with them like they understood. And so you have this group of like 100 water protectors, and they're cornered, and they're trapped, and all of a sudden they see this wave of the buffalo come over the hill, and everyone's spirits just lift. And eventually the police ran like a helicopter, maybe 10, 15 feet off the ground, and it kept running super low at the buffalo and the riders. So the buffalo didn't actually crash into the line like, you know, could have been. But I guess the point is, like, those young people I was around, maybe a lot of them struggled with the justice system before or after. But when we were there, when we had purpose, when there were systems that gave young people dignity and took care of them, took care of their needs, not just, you know, physically, because that was a part of it. There was no money there. And if, you know, you got fed and you definitely were excited to work all day on different things, but there was a system. And I guess, you know, in closing, I just want to say I'm so honored that I've been a part of beautiful people who care about each other, you know, because that to me is why I like to be around land spaces that are building out infrastructure for young people, you know, like, because I get to be around some joy and that joy infrastructure. And praying is beautiful. It's important, but how we carry that prayer through the rest of the year, and, you know, if we don't build the actual infrastructure that our you know, ancestral sciences all had when it comes to how to take care of each other, then the young people are gonna keep hurting. So I'm just honored to be here, and you know, just want to keep my ears open so we can keep building that infrastructure that'll give the young people a day in and day out chance to live that prayer, because I've just seen magic happen, you know. And since then, you know, it's not just all the rah frontline stuff. It's the everyday building out of spots that are going to be there for the youth all the time, and seeing young people process their trauma as soon as they really feel comfortable and get around the beauty way. So let's use the horses. Let's use the land to our advantage, because we're up against a lot of trauma, and we're also up against a lot of numbness, you know, when it comes to Fortnite. We got to make, you know, our way more exciting than the video games. That means horseback things. That means real love. That means huehueteo, the beauty way. So Tlazokamati for having me. You know, it's an honor to be here. I'm definitely going to just mute myself and listen, take some notes. And yeah, tiawi. Amateo.
Thank you, Nobu, for sharing your words, and I'm hoping that everybody carries with them the words in terms of young people needing to be surrounded by care and having a purpose in their life. So with that, next slide, Antonia. So before we get started, just want to share with everyone that this project is supported by grant number 15 PJDP 21 GK 04048. MU, awarded by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, Office of Justice Programs, the U.S. Department of Justice. The opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in this online learning event are those of the presenters, the authors, and do not necessarily reflect those of the Department of Justice. Thank you. Next slide.
Thank you for your powerful words, Nobu. That it makes me want to, you know, talk to you guys about how or why this is so close to my heart. So I lost my father a couple years ago, and I lost my brother last year, and they were both in and out of the criminal justice system, and just the way that they chose to live. Or, you know, because of their experiences is why they aren't here today. And I know my family considers themselves Afro-Native, but did not really lean into this culture. And this culture is a big reason why I'm here today speaking. So as I speak with you today, I'm speaking, you know, for my brother and my father who didn't make it, and for my sons who will grow up, you know, with culture as a big part of their lives. So to start, you know, I wanna center us, and please take 5 or so minutes to find a picture of who you do this work for, because as we start, it's always good to keep in mind who has brought us to this work. As you see, this is a picture. This is where I usually am in Yakutat, Alaska, where we were holding a culture camp. Most of my pictures from today will be from Yakutat. As you guys are looking for pictures, I just want to say that I'm presenting, but I'm also a learner and would love to hear from you all. I'd love to hear just thoughts, opinions, what works, what you guys have in your experiences, because the whole point of my talk today is working together and integrating systems. So if we can collaborate and learn from each other, I think that would be a great plus from today. Okay, Antonia, next slide. Okay, so today I hope we can gain an understanding of how lack of mental health services and service integration leads to more of our youth in the juvenile justice system, and then also gain an understanding on how culturally responsive services and service integration will keep our youth out of the juvenile justice system. So it's twofold. Okay. Next slide. All right, so here are some of the facts, right? 21% of American Indian and Alaska Native 18 plus reported mental illness the past year. This is from a 2017 article, which will be in the references at the end. You know, suicide was the second leading cause of deaths for ages 10 to 34. And co-occurring mental illness and substance use 3 times the national average. So the article also stated that mental health service utilization is low. And I want us to think critically about that last part. And I have some questions for you. Do you agree with that assumption? Why is that? If you do agree, why is mental health service utilization low? And what are some reasons in your community?
So Jordan, would you like people to put their responses in the chat box then?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay. And then also for our listeners, there is a Q&A that you can click on if you have a question.
Let me see. You can see chat responses. Great point. Insurance, finding mental health professionals, wait times, it's difficult to find the right people. Absolutely. Stigma, yes, stigma is a big one. Waiting for an appointment. Cultural and lingual practitioners, yep. These are all great points. Too many people in the waiting room who know the person. Yes, in small communities, you know, you're not trying to be the topic of community gossip, so you kind of stay away. So, absolutely. Yep. These are all great points. And I think a lot of us are on the same wavelength of stigma is a big part of it. Also, lack of professionals that can work with our people and our young people, so I mean, I know in the small communities I'm attached to in Southeast Alaska, mental health professionals are flown in and or are from video and Zoom, and it's hard to build a relationship that way. So yeah, I understand. So trust is hard. Pride. Absolutely. These are great response. Yeah, mental health not being seen as a priority, being seen as survival, and like not understanding that the two are working together. So yes, great points. And you guys can continue to leave comments in the chat because we can all learn from each other by checking the chat. So thank you. Okay. Next slide, Antonia. Okay. So our connection to the justice system. The rate of mental illness among jail populations, and this is global, is 36%. I would argue that it is higher. Native youth are overrepresented in the juvenile justice system, and I'm sure we're all aware of the multiple factors that play a part in Native youth being in the juvenile justice center. But also I feel like mental illness should not be pushed to the side, and we know where a lot of the problems in our community stem from, and it's intergenerational trauma. And this video is from Australia, but I feel like it speaks to our experiences as well. So I just wanted to, show you this video.
The story of our communities, people and nation starts a long, long time ago. More than 60,000 years, in fact. This was when our culture and our law first started to thrive. We knew who we were and where we belonged. We took care of each other, our land and our waters. We ate food that made us healthy, lived on country and abided by our laws and song lines. Our families, our children were happy, with strong minds and hearts, because they were where they belonged. But then, everything changed.
Colonization came, bringing wars, disease, famine, violence, and the destruction and violation of our cultural laws, sacred sites, families, and communities.
We were denied our knowledge, language, ceremonies, and identity, the very things that tell us who we are and where we belong, and our connections with each other and the land grew weak.
And then, our children were taken from us. They had their names changed and their identities stripped away. They were told that Aboriginal people were bad. Worse still, they were told that their parents and grandparents did not want them.
For years this happened, and those children became known as the stolen generations.
Our children were denied love and experienced physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. This left very deep, very complex, and very real wounds, leaving scars that are still being felt personally, socially, spiritually, and collectively.
In the time when our story started, we were able to parent in the cultural way that has seen our families survive and thrive for generations. Our people were strong, and our culture flowed and healed us in times of hurt.
But since the trauma of colonization and the stolen generations, we have not been able to heal in the same way. And we have unknowingly passed this trauma on to our children through sharing our sad stories and having them witness and experience our pain. This is known as intergenerational trauma, and we see symptoms today in broken relationships, disconnected families, violence, suicide, and drug and alcohol abuse.
But this is not where our story ends. We still have strong minds and hearts, and we still know who we were and where we belong. By creating safe and strong communities together, supporting our families to be free from pain, returning to our culture and building a strength of identity, we can stop the cycle of trauma and bring about positive intergenerational change, so that we can continue to thrive for the next 60,000 years. There are simple things that we can all do to help heal our trauma.
Visit healingfoundation.org.au to find out more.
Next slide, Antonio. There we go. Okay, I mean, that video pretty much, I think is just a great example of intergenerational trauma. And we know, as people in our communities, as practitioners, and even research, the way, however it's defined, is backed it up, that culture heals. Protective factors are family, culture, ceremonies, elders, right? So these are the things that help our communities. These are the things that, make our youth feel whole. Unfortunately, and kind of the thesis of my talk today is that culture is great, culture heals, but there are systematic barriers that get in the way of culture doing its thing and healing our kids. What I mean by that is that there are ways in which communities and I guess society keeps culture from healing because of how separated things are. So there's, juvenile justice, there's child welfare, there's the school, there's the health center. How often are these organizations or these parts of the system working together to help an individual child? And this kind of, again, this picture is from Yakutat, Alaska, at a culture camp. And there's a story of a student from this camp. He was a part of juvenile justice system. He was a part of child welfare. He had difficulties in the school system where he was from. He was not from this community, but he came into the community for culture camp, right? His parents were separated. There was custody things going on with him as well. But when he was at camp, the way he lit up, the way he participated, the way he danced and drummed and felt a part of this community and felt a part of what we were doing with the culture there, it was really encouraging knowing what he came from, knowing where he came from. And this camp was, a little less than 2 weeks. And it just seemed like, wow, we found a place for this student to be. where he could be himself, where he could be happy. He came with a lot of trauma, a lot of sadness, and this culture like really lifted him up. Well, when the camp ends, there was no coordination between all of the parts and all of the things that were happening, in his life. There was no coordination between the juvenile justice center that he was a part of. There was no coordination between child welfare and where he should go and what should happen from here. There was no coordination between, the mental health providers. And so unfortunately, he goes back to a situation in his village that wasn't the healthiest for him. And we ended up losing this student not too long ago. And that really, I think of him pretty much every day, because man, in that environment, we saw the best of him. And for the systems to not be coordinated and not be, malleable enough to make sure that this kid gets what he needs, it's just really sad and unfortunate. And that is kind of the point I want to bring to you guys today. Antonia, next slide. As I was saying, how can culture heal through a divided system? So the Western system, which I guess we all know, is very divided. There is school, there is health, there is justice. The mental and physical health are separated. Education services from mental health services, from child welfare. They're all working, but they're not integrated. They're not working together. They're not doing what they can to make sure that, hey, this kid should not fall through the crack. They're all just doing what they're supposed to do in their silo. So that's kind of how Western systems have been, how they've been constructed. And that's how our kids get lost, because there's no working together. Next slide. And that is not our way. That is not how we operate. Integration is indigenous. There's nothing that operates on its own, right? We're all a part of the entire community. We're all a part of our family, of the environment, and everything is interconnected. But unfortunately, our systems are not. And when our systems are not, that creates problems for our students to overcome. And, it doesn't need to be that way. I know, speaking of the community where I often am, in Yakutat, Alaska, and basketball is a huge part of Alaska. Basketball and wrestling, and basketball is, my orientation. I love basketball. But the school had a policy where kids who play basketball, if they were failing, or if they were not, oh, my son's here. Sorry, this is go, please. Go, bye. Can you say hi? Hi. Okay, bye. Sorry. Sorry. So basketball is a big part of this community. And when students were failing, yeah, he had to grab something for school. When students were failing, they took away basketball. Well, for a lot of those students, basketball was the reason that they were in school in the first place. So when they realized that they weren't going to be able to play, they just stopped going to school, right? And to me, and when they stopped going to school, then, students are likely to get into trouble, right? So without that communication, without that, hey, this student needs basketball so he can stay in school, you know, just flipping the narrative and doing what's best for the student, and working together with the school, with the health center, with, you know, the coaches, and trying to figure out the best situation so that the kid can stay in school, is, to me, it was a systems failure. And I think that they've, you know, been working on it, because, you know, the kid is not going to get better academically if he doesn't go to school, and he doesn't go to school because he knows he can't be a part of basketball. So that's just sort of some of the ways where systems kind of, you know, they're all working in silos, and they're not doing what is best for the student by not working together. Okay. Next slide. So now let's talk about how system integration can work. And after I show you this example that's going on here in Hawaii, I would love to hear from you guys where there are system integration that has been proven to help, you know, students dealing with mental illnesses. Okay, can you play it, Antonia?
The Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility says for the first time since it opened 6 decades ago, there are no girls locked up.
This comes after a years-long push to divert juveniles away from prison. Our Sammy Selena is here now with our top story tonight.
Just from 2018 to 2020, there has been around a 42% decline in girls incarcerated in the Kailua facility.
We brought awareness to it. The girls that were going through the most severe trauma, that were ending up
Sorry, a little technical difficulty.
were ending up
Jordan, could you just provide a little information about the video? Because I think we're going to have technology glitch there.
Yeah, sorry about that, everyone. So basically what is going on in Hawaii is that the schools, the health centers, and the juvenile justice department is starting to work together, especially in, I guess, what were considered high incarceration areas on Oahu. So how that works is, you know, there's a Waianae Comprehensive Center on the west side. They have given mental health resources and people to talk to in each of the high schools, and all of the schools actually. And they also have, you know, behavioral health services. They have physical health services. You know, girls in situations where not great home situations, you know, they have access to healthcare, right? They have access to healthcare where they don't have to, you know, go through family members, because they were realizing that a lot of the runaways and a lot of the truancy were actually, you know, young pregnant women, and they were just trying to figure out and be away from their family and be away from their trauma. So the way that the system integration worked here is that it kept kids from being in the juvenile justice system. A lot of the kids that were in there were runaways, were truants, or, you know, were into prostitution to you know, take care of themselves after they became runaways. And the state and the practitioners here decided that that's not the way we should take care of our children. It's not the way we should take care of our Native Hawaiian youth. And so they made a decision to work together, to talk with each other, to make sure that students aren't falling through the cracks. And then I guess it was, June this year, there were no girls in the Juvenile Justice Center. And that is an amazing accomplishment. And that's what system integration can do as we combat intergenerational trauma, which leads to, which leads to mental illnesses. I would love to hear from you guys. I would love to hear if there are examples from your communities where you've seen system integration be protective and or help students succeed. So if you can, enter in the chat. Like I said, I'm learning too, so would love to hear if you have examples. And also, Amber put the link in the chat if you guys want to watch it and read the article under it. Collaborative courts, yes, that's great, super helpful.
Jordan, while we're waiting for people to respond, was there, who led the collaboration? Was it community led? How did this get traction in order to move forward?
The Native Hawaiian Health Centers were a big part of transforming the system because they are the ones that are connected to the schools and the families, and they know whose children end up in the Juvenile Justice Center. So they were the ones that reached out and wanted to make it a more integrative system, because a punitive system just wasn't helping, it wasn't working. It's been generations of, Native Hawaiian youth who aren't getting the services they need. Yeah, it's hard when there's non-natives with little experience in the Native community, for them to integrate with other moving parts of the community to have best outcomes for our children. So like in Hawaii, I think it has to come from whatever the Native hub is in the community, because they're the ones with enough credibility to reach out, right? Wow, a meditation program in middle school keeps kids out of detention. I like that. That's awesome.
Also, Jordan, it mentions restorative practices, which we know is like thousands and thousands years old, an indigenous practice. And working with youth and families dealing with systems trauma.
Yes. Our ways work, if we can find our ways and, instead of going through a Western system, if we use systems that have been in place for thousands of years, that these systems are what our community needs. These systems will help our kids not, end up in situations where they really don't need to be in.
Yeah. So Jordan, I know we have a lot of tribal youth grantees and some Healing to Wellness Court grantees participating in this online learning event. And I think that in itself is a really good example. in terms of looking for resources that support growing responsive healing programs for young people to nurture them, into becoming healthy adults. So just want to put a plug in for anyone that is not a grantee. If you're looking how to build community through cultural-based strategies, please visit our website, www.tribalyouth.org, because there's a lot of resources there to support you as you think about this today and moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I guess my call to action would be that it's both on the individual level and on a systems level. And what I mean by that is people in the community, being a part of the community, we know our kids and we know what's going on with them. So if there's a situation where we can, talk to the school or talk to the coach, talk to the health center, and advocate for a student's needs or a child's needs, then that starts the collaboration process on the individual level. Meanwhile, we have to make sure that our systems, our schools are working with our behavioral health centers. And that is working with our cultural practitioners. That is working with our elders, in the community. So that is what we should aim for. And that is protective against, mental illness and what comes with that. And instead of those kids ended up in the juvenile justice center, they are, being picked up and held up by all of the different parts of the community that are there just for them to raise up.
Yeah. Jordan, there was a mention from Huey in terms of a mentoring program in San Diego.
Oh, wow. Cool. Mentoring program for young men and women ages 12 to 7. Yep, that's amazing. Mentors can become advocates, can be that person if, our kids don't have that person. Those are great programs, and if the mentor can, make sure that what's going on for the child is great, then that's part of this, systems integration. Wow, 90% college attendance rate. That's amazing. This is so exciting, seeing what the power of collaboration can do in our communities. That was kind of my hope for today, that we can, talk about systems integration and how we can collaborate to lift students up. Because it works, There's this girl in Yakutat where all of her whole family has been in and out of the Justice Center, right? But they started a new program there, and she was, in and out of trouble. They started a new program there, which is like surfing, and it's surfing, but it's also, helps to teach Tlingit cultural values. And man, she's just taken to the water. She's now a lifeguard. She is set up to go on a surfing trip. And that is just, and to watch her glow and shine, because, the cultural practitioners and the surf instructors and her teachers at school all work together to support her. That is why she's, successful right now. So integration and collaboration does work. Antonia, next slide. So, I mean, we talked about it in the chat, but for yourself, a good activity is to draw a flow chart between the entities that deal with youth in your community and how if they connect to mental health services, right? So this is not an exercise we can obviously do right now because we're not all in the room together, but it's something, a take-home exercise for you to see, for you to visually see where are the gaps, right? What happens when there are behavioral health concerns? Who is involved, and how is their collaboration? So that's an exercise that I would like you guys to do and learn from. Next slide. And here are some resources from our communities, which we will also be sending out after this presentation. But right now I want to open up the floor for any questions, because we have some time to do some questions and answer, and hopefully you can get to as many as possible. Thank you, Hannah. I will speak to one thing that did come up is how do we get more Native mental health practitioner? And that is a great question. Oh yeah, Rachel, I'll get to you in a second. So that way we don't really have answers for that yet, right? And that's due to lack of systems. It needs to be encouraged as a pathway. There are ways for our Native students who are in college to really contribute to the community through mental health services. And I think that, stigma might be a part of it, right? We don't really want to go into mental health. So we have to destigmatize mental health in our communities and, it be considered a pathway, as well as traditional healing. How do youth in foster care get access to cultural and traditional healing? That is a great question. I think that in the foster care system, it needs to be known where our Indigenous kids are going. And with that, we should aim to put our kids in the most culturally competent household as possible. And that needs to be outlined as a necessity, right? Our kids deserve to be a part of culture and learn traditional healing, and it should be a priority to the families that are taking them in. Thank you for your question, Rachel.
I have a question, Jordan. You serve as a consultant for the Tribal Youth Resource Center.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when I'm participating on online learning events, that oftentimes I'll reflect and I'll have questions later. I am wondering if you would be open to sharing your email address, so if folks want to get a hold of you post this online learning event in terms of questions, other resources, if you would be open to that. Not to put you on the spot, but but I
Yeah.
just did. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am a practitioner in mental health and behavioral health services, and you know, I serve Native Hawaiian, Alaska Native populations, and I do it, you know, through my indigenous and cultural lens. And you know, I would love to be a resource for anyone who is interested or knows youth that are thinking about that and want to get into that space and field and still stay true to, you know, who they are, or even learning about how to incorporate, you know, indigenous knowledge and indigenous ways of being into providing mental health services. Right. If you want to enter the Eurocentric mental health system as professionals, given the sanitization of the history of colonial mental health, I agree. Right. So we need to completely disrupt that model. And that is something that I do and I hope to do in my work as much as we can. And so it needs to be, we have ways of helping our people and are helping our people spiritually and helping our people through traditional means. So why don't we incorporate those ways and make those ways the ways for our community, our people, so that we're not just, you know, compounding the effects of colonialization by bringing Eurocentric models in, right? We have ways, and those ways need to be appreciated. Trying to do that at the university. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it's not easy, but we should be working together to find out how to, you know, get away from that model and how to promote indigenous ways of healing. And that is only possible through collaboration. So would love to collaborate. From Lisa, can you share some culturally appropriate healing skills we can use on a daily basis? Yes, well, yes and no, because it's definitely, it is and it isn't community specific. So in your community and your tribal lands, your elders are great resources, right? Hold on, let me put in my email address. But there are some universal truths that we can use, right? Like being in touch with the land, being in touch with the surrounding environment. That is where we come from. That is healing. You know, there is this thought that behavioral health has to be in a room on a couch with someone writing on a notepad. No, that's just what we think it is, but that doesn't have to be. Why can't we, you know, address trauma as we're walking in nature, right? Why can't we walk to the water? Why can't we talk about how to heal and how to be while outside, while in a sacred place? Why can't we center ourselves in that place and then talk about, you know, healing practices? So I'm not a big proponent of sitting in a room, you know, especially when you're on your own native land. Use the land, right? That is a practice that, you know, we have always done. So that is something that should be incorporated into mental health services. Yes, absolutely. The land actively speaks to you and helps to provide healing. So I hope that was a helpful answer, Lisa. Just one example of using the land, consulting elders. What are the old ways? You know, I know in Southeast Alaska, you know, going for a dip in that cold water to help center you early in the morning, to help center yourself for what is ahead, right? Yeah. Okay. A few blocks here. Oh, I know. Yes. Food is healing. Absolutely, Stan. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Jordan, we have a question in the chat box. Would you like to take the question? I can read it to you.
Yeah,
The question is, the question is from Mr. Stan Nix, and he asked, is there any research or discussion at a policy and funding level to evaluate and acknowledge Indigenous knowledge for wellness or mental health?
That is an emerging field. I believe there is some research there, and I can send you what I've seen. It's just, you know, we have our ways work, and then, you know, the Eurocentric model of taking what we know as research, as what we have been working with, and then having it fit their model of, oh, hey, it does work. It's sort of like, you know, we've all known that the people in the Pacific and the people in the, you know, on the coast of America have had an interaction for thousands of years, and only recently that was acknowledged by science. But yes, that is an emerging field, and I will be happy to send along resources. Yes, you're right, Stan. Songs, drums, weaving, carving, gathering, all work together to provide brain health, soul, spirit, you know, mind wholeness, right? These are listed as protective factors through resources, but we just know this intuitively, that this is the way to heal. This is the way to grow strong in our communities. So again, you know, our elders are the key. They have this information. And our land, the nature where we live, is a big part. Yep, absolutely, Olivia. Gathering medicinal herbs and plants on your land and drinking their tea every day. These are all healing practices. And I was taught, when you harvest, you be very sure of your intentions, right? The intentions mean as much as the plant that you're harvesting. What is this for? Who is this for? You know, just sort of centering yourself as a part of the land, as a part of, you know, gathering what you need. So yeah, Rachel, you're getting some great stuff. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Olivia. But yeah, we need to destigmatize mental health. We need to integrate our systems. We need to promote cultural practitioners. Yeah. We need to laugh more. We need more jokes. We need stories. We need, you know, to cry together. That's all healing. That's what we've always had. So yeah, I added my email to the chat, and I would love to hear from you guys. I would love to talk to you about what I do in my practice and how I integrate Indigenous ways of being. And if I could be a resource to you, or if you have, you know, if you have thoughts and opinions and anything for me to make me better, I'm open to that as well. But I'm really grateful that we had this time together. Antonia, next slide. That's what I want. Next slide. Okay. Here, let me put my email again. I'm gonna add my email again.
Jordan, while we're doing that, we just want to, on behalf of the Tribal Youth Resource Center, thank each and every person that is a part of today's learning opportunity. Most importantly, want to thank each and every one of you for the work that you do in communities, for your good hearts, for your care, for lifting up young people, for supporting families. So we know that we appreciate you, and we hope that you'll visit our website, www.tribalyouth.org, in order to continue the conversation and see how we could support you. Our services are free. They're open not only to tribal youth grantees and juvenile healing to wellness court grantees, but for any tribal organization, any indigenous nation, please let us know. We would love to continue this conversation and work with you. And wondering, Jordan, if you had some words that you wanted to close us out with today.
I just wanted to say that, you know, I came to this work from a place of trying to heal, you know, mine and my family's trauma. And what has worked for me, and the reason that I'm here today, is through healing traditional ways and cultural practices. So I think everyone who came today, like I said, I'm still learning. I'm here for you and for the youth any way that I can. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity, Stephanie, and thank you, Antonia and Helen, and and Hannah, sorry. And I definitely wanted to, you know, acknowledge again Nobu for starting us off in such a good way. So I would love to, you know, keep in touch as much as we can. And yeah, I put my email in the chat a couple times, but also you guys can, I will have my email sent out as well.
Yeah. We'll be sharing the resources and the slides and Jordan's generosity with his email. So thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you. I don't have a joke to close. Stan, you have one? Not that you can try. For our next presentation, I'll have a joke ready for closing. Thank you all for being here. How Stan. Stan, I know you know Ralph and Charlene. That's my family.